Hey everybody, welcome to Aniki, the podcast about anime of two brothers. I'm Ben.
And I, much like the pipes, are calling.
Because of Sonny Boy.
Yes.
Unfortunately, there weren't any bagpipes.
There were no bagpipes.
There should have been at least one thing of bagpipes.
F-, bad TV show.
Worst show ever. So what have you been up to since last we spoke?
Oh goodness, what have I been up to? Play Pokemon. Been playing the Pokemans.
Yeah.
They still poke.
Wait, which Pokemans?
Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Well, Brilliant Diamond, actually, but yes.
Oh.
And my game has been unbreakable, so there you go.
Has it?
Well, Diamond is unbreakable, right? So just stands to reason.
Sure. How is the new Pokemans? I've heard mixed things about it.
I mean, look, you hear that every time because half the people who get a new Pokemon game are like, I want it to be different than every other Pokemon game. And the other part are like, I want it to be exactly the same as every other Pokemon game. So no matter what, you're only ever going to please half the audience. This one definitely fits into, it's exactly like all the other Pokemon games. So if anybody wants something to be different, they're going to be mad. But if people want it to be the same, they'll be happy.
Where are they now? I think last time was Hawaii, right?
Well, this is Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, so this is a remake. I forget where this one takes place. I think it's one of the southern Japanese islands, I think is kind of what it's sure. Honen.
I don't know where Diamond and Pearl were.
Oh, I gotta remember. This is not right. Honen region is Ruby and Sapphire, so I don't care about that one.
Sinnoh.
Diamond and Pearl. Sinnoh.
Based on the island of Hokkaido. So it's the narrow road to the deep north.
Yes, it is.
I don't remember any Pokemans from there, but
it's some decent ones. Ah, there it is. Kyoto, Kanto.
The more we know.
The more you know.
Have you done anything else?
Have I done anything else? Work. Anything else other than that? Play a bunch of board games. Played Unfathomable.
And was it?
We could not fathom it. That is correct.
Well, that's good. It lives up to his name.
Yep.
Well, I read a manga that's stupid.
No, what manga did you consume?
It's not an isekai.
Oh?
It's a comedy slice of life romancy thing about two kids in high school that are a couple, and they're really stupid about it. In fact, they're a
Baka couple. Yeah, I see that right here. The Baka couple.
Yeah, that's the name of the manga.
That's the name of the manga. I see on this one.
Yeah, the funniest character is the narrator, by the way.
I can imagine because they're the straight man.
Because these two are ridiculous and have no concept of where they are. And it's short.
Yeah, I see
like
that.
What, 12 chapters.
11.5 chapters. Thank you very much.
Sure. I also watched Dune.
Oh, the new Dune movie?
The new Dune movie.
Yeah, it's big.
It is big.
It's a big movie. It's good, but it's big.
I came out of the theater thinking that's the best, or at least one of the best, book adaptations I've ever seen.
That is very true. Yep. It's
down to the point where the Duke and his wife looked exactly how they looked in my head, which is creepy.
It is definitely a pro or con because it's a movie that if you haven't read the book, it would be hard to understand quite what's happening because it definitely shows and won't tell you.
Yes.
So if you haven't been told before, you're going to be a little like, well, I watched something and I think I get what was going on, but none of the depth to it. It's like, yeah, I could see that.
They did explain a couple things, like in throw-off lines that I thought were good, like him explaining his political strategy.
Yeah.
Like, because in the book, that kind of comes out of nowhere. And then bringing up the breeding program earlier than normal.
Yeah.
Inconsequential changes, but...
So have you figured out why the Ben Gesserit don't just go to Target and buy a stand mixer and some hooks?
No. Why?
Well, again, like that's the big plot hole in Dune.
Is it?
Yeah. I mean, they're just looking for a Cuisinart hat rack. So they could just go buy a stand mixer and put some hooks on the wall and you've got it.
I'm sitting over here going, when's the pun going to drop? I'm waiting for it.
Cuisinart hat rack. You get it? Sounds like that thing.
No.
Very fun. It's very funny. It's very
bad.
Good. It's extremely hilarious. Everyone's laughing.
Everyone is laughing at you, not with you. or something. That's essentially all I've done other than watch the normal shows that are out.
Oh, and watch a lot of Hallmark movies. I've done that too.
I've watched 0 Hallmark movies.
What? Yeah,
and I intend to keep it that way, although...
There's a time travel one with Christopher Lloyd, and it's actually pretty cute.
Is there actually?
Yeah.
Okay, I might renege on that one. If our mother, when I go home for the holidays, has that one playing, I shall watch it with great concentration. But other
he
than
uses a time train, so I mean, it all comes back around.
Are you saying that it's like a sequel?
I'm positive.
I think we need to come up, though, with someone needs to make a database of all the characters in all these Hallmark movies and come up with a single unifying universe.
You can't do it because the same actress plays like 5 different pro tags every year.
That's fine. I've done it. It's a fun game. Mom watched the same actress in like 3 or 4 different movies. And I just assumed that she was part of a witness protection program.
I mean, that's fair.
That's why she was jumping around. Or she was like Outlander or something.
Yep.
Time traveling romance, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a fun holiday game. Drink a lot of eggnog and come up with Hallmark cinematic universe theories.
There you go.
Speaking of cinematic universes, I'm talk about all these worlds.
You mean all of this worlds?
All these this worlds, yes.
All of the this is world, right? That's how you pluralize that?
I think it's these's.
Oh, these's world.
So this time we decided to watch Sonny Boy, which is
what a choice.
Interesting.
What a choice.
Normally I would ask you, hey, what was the elevator pitch for this series?
No. Okay, no, this is easy.
Is it?
At least for the first half. The back half gets a little wild. But the front half is, what if Lord of the Flies and Quantum Leap with superpowers?
What if?
What if?
That is a pretty good summary.
See? Lord of the Flies, Quantum Leap, superpowers. Got it in one.
Especially in the first half.
The first half is Lord of the Flies and superpowers. The back half throws in the Quantum Leap. But
yeah, I can see that. But ostensibly, it's about a group of middle schoolers who are in school, and their school is thrown into the abyss.
Yeah.
And they all get superpowers.
Well, turns out they all got superpowers, but they don't realize that at the time.
There are many superpowers to be had, and they're trying to get back home, but they end up going into like a multiverse scenario.
Yeah.
How do they get back? Good question. Let's find out.
Yeah, well, no. Don't tease our audience by saying that they get back. Well, that you will learn how they get back. That is a dirty lie.
They're trying to get back. Whether or not they get back is up for debate.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Now ask me how they got back, and I'll be like, space. Space, I guess. I like that about the show. I like how they don't explain that, but...
They don't explain anything.
But they don't explain that.
So what did you think of it overall?
I think it's really good. It's really good. Very interesting. Characters are well developed. All fairly intriguing. All feel like real humans in a lot of these different scenarios that they have been thrust into. Animation's really, really good. I really like the art style. It lends itself. It does have realistically drawn cats.
Especially with the snot hanging out their nose.
No.
I would agree. Very good animation.
I do think the first half is better than the back half. I think I'd have to watch it a few more times. The back half gets pretty wild.
It does require, I think, multiple viewings.
Yeah, I think it's got a lot of metaphor in there, especially in the back half. So
it's nothing but.
You're gonna have to work through that. But yeah, no, it's good though.
Very good. I gave it a 9. I think it could have been a little tighter, especially with that back half.
Yeah, the back half gets a little wild.
Because, Tatami Galaxy, which this reminds me a lot of.
Yeah.
It's interesting in its own way, in a similar vein to this.
Yep.
But by the end, it doesn't wrap up everything and doesn't just lay out all the explanations for you. But it does give you a through line to be like, oh, okay, I can work with this. This show does not do that.
No.
You got to figure it out yourself, if there's anything to figure out at all.
I mean, it also has a bajillion time skips. Like, months go by between episodes. At least from the perspective of our protagonist, a lot more time passes relative to other characters. But as far as our pro tag goes, it takes place over 2 years or something. Probably, maybe, it's a little unclear, but it's a while.
It's somewhere between 2 and 5,000 years. Would you recommend that most people watch it, though?
I think you have to be ready for it. But otherwise, you'll just be like, well, that's weird in anime.
It is very... I don't know that it's very anime. Is it very anime?
Yeah, of course it's very anime.
I would say that it's an art. I do like art. But most animes are not art. They're isekais.
I mean, that's fair. Yeah, well, and is this not an isekai? I would argue, no, this is a fairyland story, not an isekai story, which are fundamentally different. But...
because they want to go home at the start. So you want to go into spoiler land, although it's very hard to spoil this show.
I mean, it is and it isn't hard to spoil the show. It's complicated.
That's just the title of the show. It's complicated.
More or less.
How do you want to tackle this? There's so many characters. I don't know if we can just go through each of them.
I mean, right, so we got our main boy who has a name that I don't remember because I'm bad at names. Huh?
He's Nagara. I remember the top three. Nagara, Nozomi, and Mizuho.
We've got our core of 3, and then we've got two major secondary characters, and then you've got the writhing masses.
And the rest of them. Who would you say are the two main secondaries? Who are the two main secondaries in your opinion?
What's his name? The Indian guy?
Rajshani.
Yeah, Rakshani, and the superhero.
I assume you mean Asakaze.
Yes,
the guy with the red shirt.
The one with the red shirt. The one with the spatial distortion superpower, which is OP. So,
funny story about him. I remember watching the first episode where they display his power. Mm-hmm. That was when it was airing.
Yeah.
And I came back on episode 3 forward.
Yeah.
And they kept talking about how his power is going to be amazing and get us home. Yeah. And it took until the last episode to be like, what is his power?
It's like spatial distortion.
Because he doesn't really use it much after the first episode.
No, he uses it a lot. He uses it to like fly around and stuff.
Well, yeah, but that's not really... you could not intuit from him flying around that it's spatial distortion.
I mean, I could.
Could you?
Yeah. I was like, oh, his power is spatial distortion.
I just assumed that he could fly.
No.
But
I mean, I guess that's one reading. You see a man fly and you're like, oh, it's fly. But also...
yeah, I mean, they have superpowers, they can fly.
Yeah. Okay.
Who knows?
You know, like Goku.
Like Goku, who uses his charisma to fly around. So how do you want to start?
Oh, I mean, we should talk about Nagara, right? Well, should that be how we start? I think it's just easier just to sort of run down what happens plot-wise, which is, their school gets sucked into the abyss. They spend a long time wondering how in the world this happened, why did this happen, and lots of blaming going on. Meanwhile, they have to learn the rules of this world because they get transported to another world and it has its own little special, unique rules they kind of have to deal with because they, for all intents and purposes, look like superpowers that other people are manifesting, but they're not.
And this applies to each new this worlds.
Each new of these this worlds, because in the back half of the show they start teleporting between a couple of them. Though they might be doing that sometimes in the first half too. It's a little complicated and not exactly clear, but that's okay. Oh yeah, no, they do, because they transport themselves from the fire world to the monkey world with nobody realizing that happened.
Oh,
because there's a monkey baseball world.
See, I thought the monkeys were on
your
island.
You are supposed to think that, but then when they accidentally transport back to the island that burned down, they're like, "Oh, huh." Well,
yeah. How about that?
So it turns out our main character, it takes us for the whole first half to learn this, but the main character, Nagara's superpower, is that he has super runaway from Venture Brothers. He can transport to another world.
And take everyone with him.
He kind of creates another world and can warp people with him. In the beginning, he can't control that. It just kind of happens. And technically it happened before the show started, but maybe not. It's odd, but he's the one responsible for getting everybody trapped here. But not only these guys, but everyone who has ever been trapped in these infinite thises world, he has accidentally done. Supposedly.
Well, him and Mizuho. The two of them did it.
Yeah, on mostly accident.
Kind of.
I mean,
They didn't intend for it to happen.
In the same way that sometimes when you're a tween and you're like, man, I just wish I could run away to somewhere. Normally, if you think that, that's not a problem. But it turns out if you have the ability to warp everybody to another world at will, that can be a problem. Kind of like how if you had a power to kill everyone, every once in a while when you have those dumb thoughts, it's like, man, I just wish everybody would just drop dead. And then one time they actually did. I mean, can you really blame somebody for having done that?
I think you can. I don't think it's right, but you can.
I mean, one could. So what are Mizuho's powers?
Mizuho's powers are being able to create copies.
Incorrect.
It's her and her cats.
No, she has no powers. Her cats have powers.
It's her.
They never
and her
do learn
cats.
who Mizuho's actual power is.
Yes and no. I think her power was the cats, and the cats' power was to copy.
One of the cats' powers is to copy. Not all
The
of
other
them.
two are just good to fetch.
Yeah.
They actually broke them all down. Like, one takes orders, one gets them from the real world, and then the white cat copies the thing.
Copies them.
And brings
That way,
them here.
that way nobody ever leaves the real world.
Yeah.
Except they do.
Sort of, kind of.
Well, see, and that sort of gets to one of my interesting things about this show, where I think one of the very interesting things about this show is it kind of shows the absurdity of the multiverse theory, where it says, okay, if there are actual infinite multiverses that happen every time a choice is made one way or the other, then that means there's infinite yous. But what if you are not the quote-unquote mainstream you, and you are the you that got shoved off into some weird crazy hole?
That's an interesting read.
And that's kind of what that's one of the things this show kind of does, right?
It does hint at that, especially around the middle.
Yep, it's definitely playing with that. Oh, well, you see how if you take multiverse theory at face value, here's why it's ridiculous. Yep, that is ridiculous. That's why I don't like the multiverse theory. I think it's bad for just this reason. There's no reason why I shouldn't be that guy who shoved off into an infinite planar hellscape, and instead in the one here in Normalville.
I think we should talk about the first half versus the second half. First half, I got into it thinking, and I think this is the intention, that it was going to be like a puzzle game of how do we get back? We have to conquer all these different little worlds. These worlds represent, things happening to a certain character or set of characters with similar problems.
Yep.
So it's going to be kind of like a psychological puzzle game. Which is nice because we got to meet all the different characters that way. It didn't feel like anyone was the quote unquote main character at that point.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't even know Mizuho was a main character until about episode 6.
Yep. Yeah. As is the intent, right? And the other thing that the first half does is it really leans into that sort of Lord of the Flies thing of like, well, how did all these kids with zero authority try and society?
And they never really do.
They never quite do. They almost do, but then the overlord of this worlds throws a big wrench in them by giving them an authority figure.
The sensei?
Yeah, the fake authority figure, because she's not really their teacher, but another student who looks like their teacher, mostly because everyone who ever went to this school has ended up having a double in this worlds. So, yeah.
It also sets up that there's like a romantic thing going on between Nagara and Mizuho, or they're supposed to be. Right? It sets the expectation that that's going to happen.
No, it's Nagara and what's her name?
Well, Nagara Mizuho is the OTP, obviously.
All right. Then we have confused. Mizuho is which girl?
Mizuho is the one with Nyanmazan.
Okay, no, see, I don't read that. I read the OTP as the other one.
No.
Nagara and what's her face? The
Nozomi.
one with the power of compass. Yes, mouse.
Yeah, that's Nozomi.
Yeah.
She's very optimistic, wears her heart on her sleeve. And yes, the show does set up the expectation that they are the OTP. But by the end, like, I fell for that. I thought they should be the OTP. But by the end, I was like, no, I think it should be Nagara and Mizuho.
Well, evidently the show thinks that too, to a certain extent.
Yeah, kind of.
Of course, I read the relationship more of a brothers in arms, less of a romantic thing, because I don't think either of them care about each other romantically.
It's hard because their relationship evolves. I don't think his and Nozomi's evolves at all. It's always kind of a crush on his side and more of a friend on her side.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And just stays that way. Whereas Mizuho starts out antagonistic and apathetic and then moves towards, I also want to leave this place, being one of two people to do that.
Yep.
Given the fact that they have to team up to do so, and they spend a lot of time together, like a lot of time together, I think they're the OTP.
I mean, that's fair.
She also doesn't fall down a crevasse.
She also doesn't fall down a crevasse.
And she's not dead in the real world.
Well, neither is Nozomi. Well, define real world.
That's a good question, isn't it?
The standard reality in which we end up in at the end of the show. Not the standard reality which they left, which is a different standard reality from the standard reality they end up in. At the end. So did they go back home? Kind of.
I would say yes. I have a theory that we can get to at the end on how to read the show, but
I mean, the way to read the show is that that's a fairyland story, and everything that kind of happens in this worlds isn't really real. It's a psychological reading of their personal and internal struggles because it's a fairyland.
There's two stories. There's the story that it's showing you, and there's the story that it's telling.
Well,
yeah, different. The fairyland is the showing part.
Yeah. Well, no. Well, I guess it depends on how one defines showing and telling, but sure, yeah.
Yeah. So here's the back half, which goes all over the place.
Yep.
We do find a doggo.
They do find a doggo. The back half basically transitions the story from one of, we're going to try to get home really, really hard. Because the heartbreak of the middle is they think they have found a good way to get back home, which is rewriting the past from the protagonist's point of view. And that will make him create a world that is the original one that they came from, or transport them back to the original world. Well, that kind of works, but doesn't. And everybody realizes we're stuck here forever, and it's how they all kind of deal with that. And it tells a bunch of stories of everybody else who has gotten stuck here.
That break in the middle is where they realize that they assume that they are copies.
Yep.
And the whole point of that thing is they're trying to rewind time to undo everything that's happened so far. And then they find out, oh, wait, what's happening in the quote unquote real world is still happening, and we're stuck here, and we exist in both places.
See, now that's interesting that you read these set of characters as the copies. I read it as that the ones that still exist in the main world are the copies due to the cat. But one way, it doesn't really matter.
I mean, it doesn't matter, does it? If you read it as the multiverse.
Yeah, both are true. Just like the copies that we learn of in the thing where we learn about the copies, which is.
I mean, if you go down that road, I think it's more interesting to read it as the characters we're following are the copies, because that raises all kinds of interesting questions on how they deal with that stuff. I
mean, that's fair. I mean, it doesn't really matter, right?
It doesn't matter.
They're both as real as the other. It's how the characters themselves feel as them. Well, there's a timeline divergent where they didn't wind up in this worlds, and the characters we follow are the ones that did.
Correct. Then we find out that not only was this class set adrift, but there have been countless other classes.
An infinite number of timelines this has happened to, because they meet some kids who have been set adrift that were first years when they were third years. Yeah,
and they're not third years yet.
Yes, and one can assume that this happens all up and down the sort of time stream, where an infinite number of students from the school have been set adrift. But no one has ever realized anybody has ever been set adrift, because the sort of standard reality timeline just keeps chugging along as if nothing has ever happened.
Well, of course. I mean,
it's all kind of fracturing off from this middle.
You can't say that there's a middle, because now you're putting a priority on one of the multiverse universes.
Well, yes, of course, but you use that to contextualize, to discuss the thing, which is.
I know, but I'm pointing out the ridiculousness of multiverse.
Oh well, yeah. No, I
you can't put a priority on one of them and say that's the real one. So we do find out that not only do we have all these characters that pop up from all these different timelines, I guess, but also some of them have been here thousands of years.
Which also leads me to the conclusion of how in the world are they keeping track of time here? Because one of the core rules of all of this worlds is that all the characters in them are in stasis. They never age, and they can't really naturally die.
Kind of, sort of. The show does hint that time doesn't flow the same for everyone.
Yes, that is true. This worlds flow differently than others.
Yeah, because at one point, Nagara and Nozomi, meet up. And she's like, "Where were you? You've been gone 2 weeks." He's like, "No, I've only been gone a couple hours." And their phones are out of sync. Like it's a physical manifestation of time not working the same. And then there's Rajhani that spends 2,000 years running around, but comes back 2 years later. But then at the end, everybody either... Well, we got to back up. So there's a character called War, right? And that's what Asakaze has been tasked by God to go kill.
Right. God is the principal of the school / the one who kind of made all of these adrifts happen. Maybe. Or gave the superpowers to everybody in such a way that has done this. Either way, he's some sort of like weird manifestation of the uncontrollable universe.
Something like that.
Yeah.
You could also maybe read that Hoshi is the principal, perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of.
Or Hoshi grew up to be the principal. It's
so War goes around and starts killing off people.
I think War and the character that Rajani meets, that is the one that tries to kill everyone, is the same.
I don't know.
I think that is true, but I don't know.
It could be, because those two could be Hoshi, just in different stages of his timeline.
Yeah.
But it could also be that the guy who is War is actually the person they found in that crevasse who was falling forever, who had lost every bit of who he is.
I think that is true. That definitely is War, but I think that is the same person that Rajani met, who was obsessed with death. Because we also met War earlier in the story of the doggo.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they could all be different characters, or they could all be the same character. At the end of the day, it doesn't particularly matter. But
so they find War. They don't actually kill him, but at some point, the concept of death is placed into all these worlds. And so Nozomi dies.
Yeah.
Or does she? I don't know. We never actually see her die.
Well,
But the cat says she's dead.
She dies in the way that characters in this worlds can die, which is she is reduced to her primal element, which is her compass.
Mm.
Her primal totem, her sort of core of a person and character.
Now you're starting to talk like the Fate universe.
At very least, that's what Rajani says.
Something like that?
So she is both dead and not.
Well, she was quote-unquote dead in the real world when they looked at that movie clip.
Yep.
Maybe. There's a lot of maybes in this show.
It's not... Again, a lot of it's not really important. I mean, it is, but it's not like... It's not the core of the story. The core of the story is this kid is this little boy learning that, not everything can go the way you want it to, and really you should just man up and just deal with the world 1 minute at a time instead of trying to plan for every little thing and try to please everybody. And if a girl doesn't go out with you, deal with it tough and move on with one's life.
No, clearly you should just lock yourself into stasis and despair for 2,000
years. Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, this is very similar to Tatami Galaxy as far as what it's saying, but in a similar but different way. It's very similar to Tatami Galaxy. I think Tatami Galaxy is, in the end, better than this, but they're both very good in both basically telling the same story from a different age point of view, because one's from a point of view of like a preteen, the other one is by somebody who should have, since all intents and purposes, be an adult, where the other one is somebody learning to be an adult.
Some of my interpretation.
Well, I mean, that's what it is, though.
It is.
I mean, in this one, it's a kid learning to be an adult, and the other one is an adult learning that, oh, shoot, I should be an adult.
Yeah, maybe. So then at the end, they meet up with Rajhani again, who has spent 2,000 years running around. And he comes to the realization that nothing has any meaning. There is no soul. You just have to do things as they come, and that's just how life be. And he also says that everybody else from their class has either lost their humanity or become something completely different. And so the only people left are, because he's going to stay here, the only people that are left are Nagara and Mizuho, who refuse to do that, and they want to go home. So they go home in a Saturn V.
By going the speed of light and then running faster. Look, at the end of the day, they never quite tell you how they get home. They just dance around it. It's like, oh, well, when you put it that way, going home was always easy. But they never tell you exactly how this method makes them go home. Which is fine, but it's funny.
And this will play into my interpretation later. I think the way home is they actually worked on it.
Oh, I mean, that's probably fair. And that would fit with the that fits with the theme.
Yeah.
The metaphor is the way home or the way forward is to actually put time and effort into doing it and not just hoping you can magically
Because
do it.
all the other times they attempted to go home, they're like relying on somebody else to do it for them.
Or they're trying to cheat. They're trying to cheat a system. They're trying to do something cute or clever to magic their way there. Where in this one, they're like, no, we got to build freaking Saturn V. Because they're still relying on their superpowers, but they're putting time and effort into it rather than doing this one neat trick that reality doesn't want you to know.
Yeah, and even at the end, they have to physically run to whatever it is.
You have to put work into it to move forward. And that's the show. We did it. We cracked it. The show in one sentence.
So I would agree that absolutely this is a coming of age story.
Yeah.
But I think it's actually more explicit in that, given that they're all middle schoolers, right?
Yeah.
They're all coming into their own. And I think that the whole concept of that they are copies isn't necessarily the multiverse. I think the copies they are realizing that they're leaving their childhood personas behind, and now they're becoming different people.
That's also fine.
And they're trying to come to grips with that. So most of them...
It's perfectly legitimate as well.
Most of them end up deciding, I'm going to stay in my own little world. I'm either going to focus on work or escapism or turn into a forest, as people do.
As people do.
And the only people to escape are people that work at escaping and learn to accept reality as it actually presents itself.
Yeah, no, that's fair. But again, I think that is a correct interpretation of the work. But it's also, again, the medium is the message, right? So you definitely get into this thing. They do that by means of a multiverse story. So it is that. And,
it's both. It's
right,
both.
Right. It's all
like
of
I said,
these things
it's
at once.
How it's shown and what's actually being told.
Yeah, it's all of these things at once. So
yes, in this theory, I think Nozomi being dead, because this whole thing I think is really from the perspective of Nagara and Mitsuho.
Sure.
I think Nagara seeing that Nozomi is dead is something like he may have seen her as like a childhood friend back in the day. And now she's become a different person and doesn't really want to hang out, doesn't feel that way anymore. And I feel like he has viewed that as a death.
Yes,
which is why she is still alive when they get home.
You are dead to me. Yeah. Yep.
Well, to an extent.
No. I get it.
That's sort of where I ended up coming to terms with what all that was.
Yep.
I think the superpowers were they're either latent talents, like they're all gifted kids.
Yeah.
And they end up trying to rely on those too heavily. And they either don't go anywhere, or they lose themselves.
Sure.
Yeah. You'll also note that there are no adults in any of the multiverses at all.
Unless you count the principal, yes.
And we don't even know if the principal was real or not.
Yeah. I mean, the only one that you get is Sensei, but you learn that she is fake. She is a student as well. Because everyone here...
She's a student that wants to have authority.
Yeah.
That's it. And she doesn't have a power other than being bossy pants.
Well, her power is probably mimicry, right?
Oh, I was going to say her power is boobs.
World class. This world's class. There's the name of the episode.
This world's class.
This world's class. Oh, it works on multiple levels because they're all school class. Oh. It's very funny. It's very clever. I'm glad I came with that. This world's class. Yeah, it's very good because of the breasts. See, as much as you want to move forward in life, there's always a boob joke that just drags you right back down into childhood. Look, are you saying you wouldn't stay in this world? It's just boobs.
That's just boobs? Because that sounds like a nightmare world.
It actually does, yes. I have seen several like Buddhist demons that are literally that thing. So
yeah, no, thank you. I'll stay with just boobs and lab coat, if anything.
No, that's fair enough. Oh, if anything at all. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a good show. You're gonna have to read your own way into it.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, there's multiple interpretations of this for sure.
The only thing I would caution anybody to do, and I have seen some of this I read a bit about like each episode, but there's not a whole lot to find because the show's very dense and esoteric, and it's not an easy watch. So most people didn't watch it last season. Surprise. They want to watch isekai trash. I would warn you that there's no easy way of connecting everything.
No. And again,
You can't.
That's not the point.
Yeah, the point is it's telling you stuff almost as a stream of consciousness, and you just have to.
This is one of those things where you just kind of have to go to Folding Ideas and see his discussion about annihilation, and you want to be the way he's interpreting things, not the way all of these stupid YouTubers are, which is take everything at like the most face value imaginable and just do that.
There's all these plot holes.
There's all these plot holes because she came back and look, the alien is still alive in them. It's like, yeah, I mean, yes, but that's not like the point, you know? Yes, they go.
That is what was shown, but come on.
Yes, they're going on a multi-dimensional trip, and then they get back at the end, but maybe they don't. I mean, yeah, but that's not the story. That is what happens, but that is not the story.
If you want something in the same vein with multi-dimensional what's-its and puzzles and stuff, but you want it to make sense, quote unquote, go watch Flip Flappers.
Oh yeah,
it's also
exactly. Like that's like this, but that's much more surface level, straightforward.
Yeah.
Or you could watch Wonder Egg Priority.
No,
don't do it.
I have heard. I don't even know if I want to watch that last episode.
It didn't end up. It didn't stick its landing.
Did you watch the last episode?
No, I still haven't.
I feel like I'm never going to. I feel like we got to episode 12 and we're like, this might go off the rails, but it was an okay show here.
Look, it was very pretty and it was doing really good until it kind of wussed out on its own premise.
It did. Then apparently episode 13 just doubled down on all the bad. So, no, I'm going to stay with my okay memories of it.
It's like, ooh, look, this looks like it could be a very deep show. And then you jump in and you like break your ankles because it was a puddle. It turns out it's one of those very good chalk drawings of like a bottomless pit. And I'm like, oh.
So this is a Wile E. Coyote joke.
It's still pretty, however.
You're just going to faceplant into a wall. Well, I'd like to ask what are we going to watch next time, but this is probably our last review of the year. So we'll have to figure out what to watch by January. But we will have our Hotake episode coming out in the next week or two. Hotakes. It'll come on Tuesday because that's a joke you made.
Yeah, Hotake Tuesdays. See how that works? It's like a Taco Tuesday.
It is.
It's very funny and very clever.
So that's it. We'll see you next year, I guess.
All right, bye.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Happy Hanukkah. Actually, is it still Hanukkah? Yeah, it should still be Hanukkah.
All the holidays. Happy the holidays.
All of them.
Every single one.
Happy Hotake Tuesday.
Hooray.
Bye forever.